Last Pint Productions presents the New Way Podcast with Ben and Matt. The New Way Podcast contains adult content including misunderstandings, montages, and pillow fights. Listener discretion is advised.
How are your plans for the future?
As much time possible with Diane before she leaves.
Seriously.
I'm totally and completely serious.
All right, I talked to her. I got the scoop. What'd she say? Hates him with the fire of 1,000 suns.
If you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling you'll find that love actually is all around.
So you got a proposal?
I love you. Always have.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Welcome once again to the New Way with Ben and Matt. I am, as always, Matt.
As opposed to last week when you were nearly shoeless Ben Wilson. I am Ben.
I am Matt is what I meant to say to make sure that I get it right this time.
Yes. Anyways, thanks again for listening in. Once again, of course, you can find the podcast and all of the other fun little things that we're up to on lastpintprod.com, which is our website.
You may notice a new redesign, unless you listened last week, in which case you've already seen the new redesign. That's courtesy of some fine fellows in India that I found on Fiverr.com. Give them a little bit of a plug. So hopefully it's a little bit easier to get around now, and if you don't care about any of the other crap that we do, which I've noticed a lot of people don't, then you can... you doing me? Or you...
Yeah.
Okay. Are you doing me? If you literally all you care about is the New Way, then just click on podcasts at the top of the page, and that'll take you to our most recent ones, which we'll continue updating weekly every Friday at midnight. 00:01 a.m. military time.
Yeah, and speaking of the podcast, here, and I know we've been alluding to it for a couple of weeks now, and you think it's just some sort of guise or some sort of extended or protracted ruse that we're never actually going to have any guests on. Well, starting next week, you will begin to hear some of the people that we've been talking about or alluding to or whatever.
Yeah, we're going to, we've got two lined up pretty close to one another and possibly a third, depending on scheduling. So actually, you may get like 3 in a row that's not just Ben and myself, mutually gratifying one another alone in my apartment on a Sunday afternoon.
Which, yeah.
Well, that's a good segue in today's topic. Today we are going to tackle an arena that most men are too uncomfortable with their own sexuality to tackle, and that is chick flicks.
Well, it's not even uncomfortable with the sexuality portion of it, but it's like that sort of thing that gets ingrained, especially, I feel like, with it, when you're talking about alpha males like Matt and I.
Yes.
When you are young and people are like, oh, there's this movie coming out and it stars Sandra Bullock.
Woo!
Yeah, that's very exciting, right? No, I mean, we're ingrained as guys or taught, subculturally, sort of in a weird way, even if, our parents aren't exactly pushing that sort of agenda on us. We're often, pushed by friends, peer pressure, that sort of thing, to be like, "Oh, it's a pussy movie, man. Oh, man, that's a movie for girls."
Yeah, and I think we were kind of struggling leading up to this podcast because we like to keep each other in the dark about what particularly we're going to talk about personally on each of these. But one of the things is that we wanted to get into what defines a chick flick, and Ben kind of nailed one of the ways I look at it, and really. The easiest way for a guy to define a chick flick is it's a movie you're embarrassed to tell the guy on your softball team about. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Anyone that's a meathead, like they call you and want to know. Sorry, I'm getting loud over here.
No, you're fine.
I get excited when I talk about softball and men's.
The funny part is like Matt is like all the way back to like 80 feet from the mic, and I'm like right next to it. And
I'm in Delray Beach, and Ben's in Boynton.
And I'm like looking on the thing, and I'm like, oh, yep, well, Matt's still louder than me.
Yeah, you can tell where Matt's talking because the blue lines go completely off the screen. So, I think chick flicks definitely are those things that you don't want to admit that you want to watch, and that's one of the reasons I think that Netflix actually took off as a medium for people to rent movies is that was the first time I could guiltlessly watch any chick flick that I want. Like, I filled my queue up. It looked like the gayest queue you've ever seen in your life. Because I was like, no one has to know. I can do this in the privacy of my own home. I don't have to go through the guilt of walking to Blockbuster and, like, bringing up my copy of 13 Going on 30 to the counter, and be like, yeah, I wanted to see this.
Yeah, it's really funny, actually. I guess when I came over and I looked at Matt's Netflix queue, I thought that maybe he did what we did, which was let somebody else borrow his password. Hey, Terry, how's it going? Anyways, because every time I log in, it's like, hey, you have recently watched One Tree Hill. And I'm like, no, the fuck, I haven't.
Oh, you watched that too?
No, exactly. But meanwhile, I come over to Matt's place, and it's like, I wonder what was on Skins last week.
Hey, listen, just watching a little Queer as Folk doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah,
okay?
it's not bad.
So Ben and I don't know. We kind of tasked each other with let's create a list of kind of they're chick flicks, but they're chick flicks that we actually enjoy and actively would watch more than one time.
Yeah, for different reasons, obviously, because this is going to be we're not going to go through like a top 5 like we've done in the past. We're going to more talk about, these are going to be very brief, because we've listed out a pretty long list, all of which could be considered chick flicks or may not be considered chick flicks by the other for various reasons.
I have 174 of these movies that I adore, every single one of them.
Have you ranked them?
I ranked the top 50, and the other ones are still... I felt bad. They're like my children. I don't want to rate, like, how do you choose a favorite Twilight movie? Like, you can't. It's impossible.
Yes.
Yeah, so many of them. So great.
Exactly. It's like, telling the guy who has Down syndrome he came in second in the race. You just can't do it.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, we proved ourselves racist on the other podcast.
And now we're going to be politically incorrect.
Pretty fantastic. We're now just we're broadening our horizons.
Yeah, exactly. We figure we have to stretch our complete lack
our
of
hatred.
Our complete hatred. No, just complete lack of decency into every single possible way, arena that we can here on the podcast. Anyways, well, here's the one thing I kind of wanted to, and I wanted to kind of tackle this. We've prepped the least for this podcast than we have for any of the ones we've done, which actually I think is going to be kind of fun because we haven't really talked about this that much. So I kind of wanted to ask Matt, in general, and like you said, you kind of think a chick flick is one that you, as a guy, would be embarrassed about telling a guy on the softball field that you saw. But really, if you're
talking... that I picked, like, the lamest man sport I possibly... Like, you can tell I'm not the athlete, that I didn't say, like, out on the gridiron. I was like, no, on the softball team,
Because, yeah, right. But anyways, I'm in, like, a specific filmic context. I mean, what is it that actually really, not being facetious and not being sort of smarmy about it, what do you consider actually a chick flick? Because I'm interested in knowing, I haven't looked at Matt's list yet. I haven't looked at any of the films he's picked. He hasn't looked at any of the films that I picked. We're going to trade sheets at one point here pretty soon, and we're going to start going through some of the stuff.
What the hell is that sound? Did you hear that rumbling?
I think it's a helicopter. They're onto us.
Oh my god, they're going to know I watch chick flicks.
they're listening to this live. They're like, Ben and Matt are finally talking about chick flicks. We have to shut this fucking thing down.
Yeah, they've gone round the bend now.
It's over.
Well, first of all, maybe you didn't prep, but I got my nails done earlier, and I fixed myself a big Cosmo, and watched some Sex and the City, and I kind of got into the groove of what we're going to talk about.
Dude, I just came from a lunch talking about my wife's baby shower with the manager of a restaurant. Don't you even fucking go there.
No, but you'd see you made the mistake. If you called it a luncheon, then you definitely would have been getting inside. Okay, and so that's kind of a good way to look at these movies. Very simple things like word choice. I think for me on the chick flicks, because you kind of get into that idea that you want to call every rom-com or romantic comedy, you want to call that a chick flick. And that's not entirely true, because I think there are chick flicks that aren't necessarily rom-coms or that kind of stuff. There doesn't necessarily have to be a romance at the foreground. I think it's got to either feature a female character, even if she's like the secondary. Like, you can't call Me, Myself, and Irene a chick flick. But you can call that any one of the awful ones with Sandra Bullock, where she plays the crazy Jim Carrey character, even though she's like a minor, like she's a lesser role in the movie. I think it kind of looks at how they're focused, and the easiest way to look at it is: do more women watch this movie over and over again than men do.
Well, no, and here's the thing. It doesn't even necessarily have to be something that women watch, to me, that they actually watch more than men. I don't think that that's necessarily one of the things that would preclude them from being on my list. And what Matt, I think, was alluding to is, like, with a romantic comedy, especially in the vein of what he's talking about, they are marketed to women. They are made for women, and they are marketed to women. So that they're already sort of an all-inclusive group right there. However, if you go up to any, even, you know, a girl who doesn't even watch that many films, or isn't really that interested in that sort of thing, if you asked her what her favorite 3 movies are, one of those 3 movies is not going to be a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Usually, it's going to be something that's a little bit more it was
crossover.
It was marketed to a wider audience, and it became something that women like as sort of a, like, here's something, you know, before we even switch papers, and because I left some very obvious ones off, like Titanic. Okay. Which I'm assuming it might be on Matt's list, but we'll see.
No, it's not.
Okay, so it's not on either of our lists. Titanic is, like, I think, one of the ultimate chick flicks. Because chicks dig it. They love that movie and they love that story, for a myriad of reasons. But it's that movie wasn't marketed to women specifically. That movie was just marketed as, like, an event film, basically. Yeah. And then, they were like, oh, it's a love story, and then there's this huge ship sinking thing, and, like, guys are going to be okay.
But it's still made you, like, and I think that's a good example. And the reason it's not on my list is I frankly don't, like, I recently watched the movie again.
Well, I don't really like it that much.
Yeah, and our lists are kind of movie, like, I completely think the Titanic is a chick flick, 100%. I think that and I'll tell you why I think it's a chick flick, is that it succeeds in what it set out to do. Look at something like Titanic versus Episode 2, and that was Lucas's goal. Like, I don't know if you remember on the when he was making that movie, his goal with Attack of the Clones was that he wanted to make a love story of Titanic proportions, literally the movie Titanic proportions. It's not. It's a movie that fails in every possible way, and one reason it fails is that the romance is not a.
I would argue that the love story fails in every possible way. Attack of the Clones has a couple moments that are okay, but not that many.
Really, you're gonna argue? You're gonna give me a pro Attack of the Clones argument,
dude? I'm just saying it's not good, but it's not the worst.
It's the worst of all of the Star Wars.
I agree with that. I mean, it's not worse.
Anyway,
it's not the worst in the history of film.
Maybe we're not the most qualified people to be discussing chick flicks, since we already were, like, derailed onto a Star Wars conversation by me. But yeah, like, Titanic is a chick flick. It's just not one of my favorites. Like, Titanic, I won't personally watch over and over again. Whereas a lot of women will watch Titanic like 100 times, and that's their Star Wars, or their whatever you want to, like, equate it to in the man side. And it's the same as we may do a special or a podcast in the future on guy flicks, which are things like Pain and Gain coming out next week, or The Expendables. Like, those are movies marketed to men that are all about the action stuff. And then there's still the ones that have the crossover. Titanic tried. Titanic was like, the first half is the chick flick, and the second half is the guy movie. Right. It doesn't work.
Well, yeah, I mean, so that's not going to show up on our list, but what I was basically saying and what I was trying to get at with Titanic is that women like it. And that if, in hindsight, you can look back and say, oh, this movie is universally loved by all of these women, or I know multiple women who say this is their favorite movie. In a few of my cases, they, like Matt said, they don't necessarily have a love story front and center, or in one or two cases, a love story at all. Mm-hmm. They're just completely loved by women. I think that qualifies as something that could be considered.
I'm really curious if you have, like, I need to look at my list again. I don't think my list has, I have a chick flick on my list that doesn't contain some sort of romance in it. Maybe not the primary focus of the movie, but I'm curious to see if you have one that cracks that formula of saying this is a chick flick and there is not a romance in it.
Well, I think I have 3 that could be very close.
Okay.
But all of them have a relationship to some extent in them, but they're all not. The focus of the movie and the plot of the movie, all of the stuff, the relationship stuff, is either personal or superfluous material. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with the major plot of the film.
Okay, all right. I'm curious. I'm
So,
curious.
We'll see. I mean, how that works out. Yeah. So it is kind of an interesting thing, and here's one of those kind of asides that I can kind of talk about from aside. I'm married. Matt is not married.
Thanks, Ben.
Like that's
hello, ladies.
that's not supposed to be a bad thing.
Want to come over and watch Titanic in 3D?
Like,
yeah, I got it.
Oh, God. Matt's this great person, but too bad he has this hugely detrimental side to his personality, which is that he's not married. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with that. No, I'm just saying sometimes there's a differing perspective there, or at least I assumed that there would be initially from my younger days. That, it's like when you get older, because I would watch my dad go and see all of these movies, after he got remarried. His favorite movies are like movies like The Terminator, and he loves Lord of the Rings now. But, but he was turning me on to these movies that were just like really just cool movies, like back in the 80s and the 90s and stuff that he just thought was awesome. And then after he got remarried, and I was 10 then, he would be like, "Oh, did you go see this movie?" And it'd be like America's Sweethearts. And he was like, "Oh, I thought it was really funny."
I almost put that. I kind of liked that movie.
It's really funny. You know who was originally supposed to play the John Cusack role in that movie?
I forget.
Robert Downey Jr. And he had to go back to rehab for like the third time.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, and so Robert Downey Jr. would have initially been in that film, and it wasn't supposed to be Julia Roberts either, I think. There was somebody else who was attached to be in that role, another main leading lady. That's some
movie trivia for you kids.
It's a crazy train wreck of a movie, regardless.
Yeah, it's a goofy movie, but it's I'm curious, like when you look at your list, because I had to, like, there were certain movies I loved as a kid that I couldn't really put on the list, even though, like, I used to watch, I watched Who's That Girl with Madonna and Griffin Dunn. It's like an 80s, a ridiculous 80s movie, but I thought it was hysterical as a kid. I saw it recently. It is god-awful. It couldn't make it on my list, but, like, I'm very curious to see if there are some ones that you let slide and you admit, like, this is not a great movie.
Right.
I just find this movie immensely watchable.
There are a couple on there,
and I feel a little guilty about it.
There are a couple on there for sure. One thing I will say also, I got on a little tangent there, what I was trying to wrap up about the whole married perspective thing, is that I found that that even though that was the way it was for my father, and that he sort of evolved to where he was, having young girls and watching all of these kind of chick flicky kinds of films, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, because I feel like at this point I'm married and my wife is like, animated films, if you put those aside, because she's always down to watch an animated film, but I will be like, let's watch this movie about a relationship, and she'll be like, no, I want to watch a movie with aliens.
Or undersea creatures.
Absolutely. I think I fell in love with my wife when she was like, I love undersea creature movies. I was like, have you ever seen Leviathan? She was like, no. I was like, what? Excellent.
She had never seen Leviathan. What was the other one? Deep something 6 or Deep Star 6?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
it was Leviathan 2, but they came out the same. That was back when when you had warring movies, they weren't mainstream. They were like the really bad, like almost made for cable movies.
Well, she'd never seen Rogue either. I think that was the first film.
I don't know that one.
The crocodile movie. It wasn't underwater, but it's still a water creature.
No.
You've never seen Rogue?
No.
Dude, we're watching Rogue tonight.
Is it better than Lake Placid, the greatest alligator movie of all time? Or Crocodile, whatever it is?
It is far better than Lake Placid.
You're such a fucking liar. There's no movie greater than Lake Placid.
I mean,
it's the Citizen Kane of alligator movies.
I know this does not have Bridget Fonda titties, but it's got...
does it have Brendan Gleeson doing a bad American accent?
It's got no Bill Pullman, so my dog won't watch it. But Bill Pullman is my dog's favorite actor, apparently. Like, I'm not even shitting you. I mean, this is before we get completely off topic. This is completely true. My dog will be acting like this fool, like running around, jumping on anything, chewing on bones or whatever. If I turn on any movie with Bill Pullman in it, he sits his ass down and watches intently. It is insane. And he is in love with Bill Pullman.
And I have dog sat for Ben's dog, Sully. And I did this on New Year's Day this year. And we watched Lake Placid in the morning before Beth's teen dance moms marathon took over the television and kept turning it back every hour. But every time Bill Pullman got on there talking about this crazy alligator, Sully just like sit there and stare enraptured, which made me like then want to like pay it. Like we clearly all of us are missing something special. Like Bill Pullman is telling us how to like survive the apocalypse.
Whoever it was in like the early '80s who first discovered Bill Pullman was like they saw like this gleaming like angel that the same thing that Sully sees now, and yeah. Anyways.
He's just telling them the secrets to life, the universe, and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, Sully officially knows everything about life now because of Bill Pullman. Anyways, okay, so here's what I want to do first, and tell me if this is cool.
No.
What? Okay, it's not cool. I want to give you my sheet, and you can give me yours, and I'm going to block out everything basically except for the first thing that pops up on the list. Now, we've gone...
But I put them in alphabetical order.
I know, but I just want to talk about the one thing, and then we can just start a dialogue about all of these films.
Right,
and kind of go back and forth.
I can do with that.
So I just want to look at the first one. I'm going to look at the first one and block everything else. Oh, no, you did not, you motherfucking ass.
Oh my god, what the hell did I put first? We're going to have crossover. I know we're going to have crossover.
Oh, yeah, of course we are.
Yeah.
But I'm really upset at you by what you put.
You don't like it?
I hate the first movie that you listed. Okay, the first movie that Matt listed.
What the fuck? How do you hate that movie?
Is 10 Things I... Oh, you know what? I'm
You're
sorry.
thinking of 10 Ways to Lose a Guy, aren't you?
I am.
You douche. I know you like this movie. We've talked about this movie.
I'm sorry. I had a moment of... Because the thing is, I was trying not to look at the rest of the list. So all I saw was like 10 things or 10 something. And I... 10. And I assumed that he was writing 10 Ways to Lose a Guy.
No, which is one of the worst romantic comedies of all time.
And so this is something that we agree on. And you wrote 10 Things I Hate About You, which is a very good movie.
You've got the Joker and Robin in the same movie, and it's an update of Much Ado About Nothing. Or no,
it's Taming the Shrew.
Taming the Shrew, yeah.
Yeah, it's Shakespearean done. And the best part is like with David Krumholtz, like every time Joseph Gordon-Levitt throws in a... Do you say the Joker? You mean Robin?
I said the Joker and Robin. It's Heath Ledger
right.
Yeah, it's the Joker and Robin.
I was thinking about it backwards there. But the funny part is like there are these parts where Joseph Gordon-Levitt will say a line from Taming the Shrew, and David Krumholtz will be like, "Don't talk like that in public." Those are the best parts of that movie to me.
It may be like one of the only really, really tolerable updates of Shakespeare. The complete and it's not just like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet that made took Shakespearean language and it was like an adaptation. This is like a reinvention of a Shakespearean play, and it does it so well. But that's why it's on there. Now, your first one, as I look on here, I know the title of it. I can't think of the movie for some reason. It's A Life Less Ordinary.
Yeah, A Life Less Ordinary was Danny Boyle's follow-up to Trainspotting.
Oh, yes.
Starring Cameron Diaz, who I don't like, and Ewan McGregor, who I do like.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I listed A Life Less Ordinary is because it's a chick flick that completely subverts chick flickiness. It's got a love story central. It's about this guy who kidnaps this girl, and they end up falling in love and whatever at the very end of the movie. You know, whatever. It sounds great. Yeah, well, it's also got people getting their heads blown off. And it's also got Delroy Lindo and Holly Hunter playing angels who are obsessed with porn.
That I don't think I've seen this, but that sounds amazing.
It's very Danny Boyle-ish. You can probably... do that.
Really, your second one is not even remotely a chick flick.
And please explain why.
All right, Ben chose for number 2 Braveheart.
Okay, and let me justify this. I have had 4 different women tell me their favorite movie is Braveheart. You know why?
Because you date interesting women. I don't know, they're Nazis.
The reason why I listed Braveheart's probably the most controversial one that I have picked on that entire list.
I'd say so.
But here's the thing. What's Braveheart about? It's about a guy who loses his wife and basically fights in her honor for the rest of the movie, only finding, some sort of solace with a woman that reminds, with the, who's the queen or to-be queen. And it is a love story, and then who is trying to save his life at the end, and how he's still in love with his wife.
I get your argument. I think that the primary focus of that movie, even though the catalyst may be romantic, I think the primary focus of that movie is the literally the cry for freedom. Like, the idea of this battle and that.
And that's the thing. I don't consider Braveheart. I never would have considered it a chick flick. However, I've just known so many girls who have been like, I love that movie so much. It's so romantic. It's such a romantic movie. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe I just know psychotic girls. I don't know. But
I think you know, like, a specific... Because I have a lot of, like I know... This is going to sound weird to go in this way. My mom hates... Like, she hates that movie because it's a guy's movie. She's like, I'm tired of... That's Hoot's favorite movie. If you tell Hoot that one of his favorite movies is a chick flick... I will explain at some point on the podcast
who Hoot is.
We're going to let that mystery build for a little while. But he is maybe the most, like, quintessential... man's man, rugged people, and if you told him Braveheart was a chick flick, he'd probably kill himself.
He'd probably kill me. If I told him that, he would be like,
"You're the only one that let it out of the bag."
Exactly. You wrote 13 Going on 30, which is Jennifer Garner, right?
Yes, sir, and Mark Ruffalo,
right? Which is that's not a bad choice because that's a competent movie. I didn't not enjoy watching that movie. I think I actually saw that movie in the theaters.
Wow. That was one of those I had to wait until Netflix came out and then put it on Netflix.
I mean,
it's big.
It's big is what it is. And big,
it's a girly
You
big.
could even say that Big is somewhat a chick flick, but I'm not going to go there. Let's keep
I love this. It's interesting choice. I want to hear you talk about this. See, Ben put Brokeback Mountain, which I think I kind of agree on a little bit.
Now, Brokeback Mountain... once again, it's one of those movies that women do love. They love that movie because it's great to look at Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger, and then girls, for some reason, also, the same way I guess guys enjoy girls making out, girls tend to enjoy guys making out.
Who doesn't?
Of course. Yeah.
Was that your sound effect of us making out during the podcast? Just followed by a lot of crying
and screaming.
Oh, my gun went off.
Terrible. Anyways, I just think that Brokeback Mountain is one of those movies that women, I think, women become more attached to those characters and attached to that movie as sort of a rewatchable thing. Guys like the movie. I mean, sometimes they're like, yeah, it's a good movie. Even without all the gay stuff or whatever those guys are saying. But girls have attached themselves to that movie. I think it kind of makes sense.
It's interesting. I think Ang Lee, actually, like when you look at his filmography,
let's stay there.
Okay,
let's stay the course there because we've got some Ang Lee to go.
Because I was thinking about that. Like with the exception of the Hulk, almost all of his movies tend to skew towards that artistic. That's
or they're anti-love stories, like The Ice Storm.
The Ice
Storm, like that.
Such a great movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm on you. Okay. 500 Days of Summer. I didn't list 500 Days of Summer because I knew you would. Also, the other reason why, because 500 Days of Summer is probably one of, I think, the greatest crafted love stories, maybe of the last decade.
With a villainous love heroine.
Well, the thing is, I like about that movie is A, it's honest, and B, it's also from a guy's perspective. So, in one way, it's a chick flick because it is a relationship movie. B, it's not really a chick flick for me, even though I love the movie, because it's not from...
Because your protagonist you're inside the male's head. You're never inside the female's head.
You're never inside the female's head once, which is why it's a great movie. Why would you put it on there? You just think it...
It's one of the, again, it kind of falls down to, and I was kind of on the fence of that one, because there's certain movies, like any Judd Apatow movies, like 40-Year-Old Virgin, you could very easily argue it skews kind of towards the chick flick side, but it has too many tangents on it that are very male-centric and very, very tied to it. As does 500 Days of Summer, but 500 Days of Summer has some of those moments of bare honesty, like when they do the interviews with each of the people talking about love, and they get to the one dude who's married, and he's talking about, like, someday I'll meet a girl that's, like, hotter and has bigger breasts or whatever, but she won't be my wife. You know what I'm talking about, the dude that plays his friend. There, moments like that are, I think men have a hard time watching movies with a very bare, raw emotion in them that isn't like, my dad died. Like, any guy can watch, any guy will cry over, Field of Dreams because it's about a dad dying, and that's okay. But they won't do one where a guy's crying because, like, he lost his friend or he loves his wife so much. So that's kind of why I made it on my list.
So, since you have a lot more on your list really quick, I'm going to ask you about the next three in succinct. In a direct way.
One of these I wasn't sure about.
Because I agree with two very strongly, or I disagree with two very strongly, and I agree with one really strongly.
Okay.
You listed Amelie Annie Hall and Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
I agree with Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
I also listed animated film that we'll get to in a little bit that's along the same lines. We still haven't had crossover yet.
No, we have not, actually.
Amelie, disagree with. Amelie is written in the perspective of a woman. However, this woman is unlike your general woman. I don't think that women look at that movie and really relate to it.
You don't think there are more women that put Amelie on their top 10 than there are men?
Nope.
You're a crazy person.
Okay.
You're an absolute, insane, crazy person.
Nope, I think you're wrong.
If we go out, if we pull my apartment complex right now...
And I have the same thing with Annie Hall.
Annie Hall, I totally was ready for you to argue with me on Annie Hall.
No, Annie Hall definitely more so, because Annie Hall, once again, you're talking about a male perspective, about a female relationship. However, the female is a lot more... she wears her heart on her sleeve a little bit more, so obviously you know what's going through her head a lot more in a movie like Annie Hall than you do 500 Days of Summer. But Annie Hall, don't agree. I think that's a comedy, that's an everybody movie, same as Amelie, basically. Beauty and the Beast, get you. Love story, totally.
I think you know very different people than... All right.
Okay, no, that's fine. Like I said, that's one of the few things I'm basing it on.
All right, here's a really good litmus. We're going to bring up another friend of ours that we know personally, and I think this can kind of help with some of these movies.
Wait. Hold on. Before you do that, here's the reason why I think that Amelie isn't classified as a chick flick. You could reverse Matthew Kasovitz's role in Amelie and Audrey Tautou, or her role as Amelie. You could reverse those two roles, and it would be the exact same movie.
But I think the aesthetic, which is extremely important when making this list, the aesthetic of that movie also, I think, skews towards unless you're looking at film.
That might actually be...
I'm thinking of okay, do you think Timmy? Do you think Timmy would watch Amelie and not think that was a chick flick?
Yes.
I don't believe you. We're going to invite Tim over to watch Amelie tonight and drink Cosmos.
So tonight we're watching Rogue, a crocodile movie, and Amelie.
And I'd also like to watch Brokeback Mountain, just to make him really uncomfortable.
That sounds great.
Okay, so Ben, we're going to have our first crossover in a second here. Because again, and I knew this was going to happen. My list is reads like very close to my guilty pleasures list. They're just kind of my guilty pleasures as chick flicks. And Ben's, of course, is going to skew extremely smart and high. They're films. I don't think, aside from one that I see coming up, most of your choices tend to be a film type thing. So your next one is City Lights.
Of course, Charlie Chaplin.
Yes. And it's a very, very interesting choice. Why did you put this on your list, though?
Well, A, it's one of the most famous films of the silent era of all time, and B, I still remember there was the stories about the people who, upon watching the film, these women were just crying in the audience when at the end of the movie, when she sees him for the first time. And
I'm sorry, I wasn't laughing about that, but you made an amazing typo coming up.
I thought you were laughing at my...
No.
That's just based off of a historical perspective. I love the scene at the end of the movie City Lights. The movie is a physical comedy. Obviously, it's a Chaplin film, but that was before... I mean, obviously you had these romances and these really melodramatic... Basically, there were soap operas that were made in the teens and the 20s. City Lights was the first to basically utilize this physical comedy and bring it into the context of this real-world aspect where you brought the audience, the female audience, around at the end to where they were nearly in tears because they understood what was going on. That's the reason why I put City Lights there.
The next one is going to be, we'll hold the honor of the first one we have on both of our lists, which is Dirty Dancing. You got to be crazy for Swayze.
I'm gonna. Here's what I'm gonna do in a second. I'm gonna go through everything quickly. But anyways, Dirty Dancing. So.
Yeah, Dirty Dancing. I mean, this is another one, and Ben's heard me kind of mention this before, but I define a lot of movies I consider chick flicks as movies that when I was a kid, I used to go to see with my mom. My mom and I would go to movies quite frequently when I was growing up. And I think, even in my early teenage years, 12 to 15, we would go every Friday for new movies that came out. I'd go see Hook. We'd go see Jurassic Park. But there were always the ones that, I knew that we would get along liking. Dirty Dancing was one of those. We went, my brother and my mom and I went to go see that movie. My dad did not go to see that movie. But it's there's something just inherently likable about all the performances in that movie. There's nothing amazing going on, but it's a great story. It's fun to watch.
I agree with you there. It's one of those movies that I will watch if it's on, and I don't really feel that less manly talking about that. I'm going to go through the ones that were listed between those two that we just listed that were on your list, so we can cut yours down a little bit. Bridget Jones's Diary, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And also an enjoyable movie. I would agree with you on that. Bring It On, I liked Bring It On a lot less than most people did.
Really?
But it is a definitive chick flick, so I can understand why you like it and why you would list it on here. Clueless, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Obviously, it has its whole roots in the 90s, and it is very specific for the time period that it was made in.
It's still an awesome flick, and it holds up.
Crazy Stupid Love.
I thought you'd hate that one. You know what? That's one of those that
it's fine.
I hate certain things at the end of that movie, but I also still respond to a lot of performances in it that I think are
sure.
great.
Well, here's the thing. Definitely Maybe is a movie I really like.
Yeah.
However, I didn't list it on mine. The funny thing is, it was doing what 500, or was trying to do what 500 Days of Summer. I would make less of an argument than I would against 500 Days of Summer, because it is more of a chick flick. And I'm kind of sad I left it off my list, because I definitely could have added that one.
Yeah.
I definitely maybe could have added that one.
Oh, God almighty.
But the one that I will bring back and argue with you is Chasing Amy. I do not feel like that's a chick flick.
I thought about it, and that was one that I kind of fought at. You're very difficult with Kevin Smith movies to call them a chick flick, other than Jersey Girl, which is definitely a chick flick.
Oh, yeah. Jersey Girl is 100% chick flick.
But Chasing Amy... See, here's why I put Chasing Amy there, and it's not necessarily how it's viewed. I think it's when it's viewed properly, it very much is, because there are themes that are being examined in that movie, especially like the friendship theme, which I still feel is one of the only movies, and there are very, very few. I mean, I can count on a couple of fingers how many movies examine the bromance in a comedic way, because the bromance isn't really the humor of that movie,
right?
And it's not a bromance. It's more of that. It's man love that's not romantic man love, and guys are very uncomfortable watching shit like that, including Kevin Smith, who completely ruined that movie by saying that Banky was gay, which I think is a huge mistake, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, all right, so going on to Ben's list, one that he said he wasn't going to put on, but put on, and I like the choice, Heathers. Great 80s, one of the birth of the goth movement.
And that's one that really there's no, and that's what I was going to say, there is really no, there's obviously the infatuation level between the Christian Slater and Winona Ryder characters, but there's no central love story to that movie.
Yeah, not really. Not central, but there's still a connection. I'll give you that.
And it's a chick flick because it features prominent and powerful male or female characters.
I'm going through Ben's list, and we're going to kind of push through some of these. I'm getting a little ahead of myself.
Well, there's one here like Easy A, good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. Absolutely a chick flick.
Yes, definitely a chick flick. Jane Eyre, you have on your list, definitely very chick.
And actually, I was even, and the reason why I didn't even specify is because you can even talk about the 1947 Jane Eyre, or you could talk about the 2011 Jane Eyre. Either of them work for me because they're both good movies, and they're both.
Almost any period drama that contains a romance in it is a chick flick.
Oh, exactly. I mean, obviously, we probably both put Pride and Prejudice on here, did we?
No, I'm not. I fucking hate... You've never heard me rant about Pride and Prejudice?
No, I like Pride and Prejudice.
Fucking hate the story. I hate the book. I hate everything about it.
Just so we can skip this later, too, I also put Sense and Sensibility on there because I know what we're talking about, because I like Sense and Sensibility.
I'm amazed at some of these we have on here together, but I can't believe you put... Is that
you were talking about Ang Lee? Ang Lee directed Sense and Sensibility.
I don't care. You have 3 what's her name Jane Austen books adaptations on your list?
They're chick flicks though, and I enjoy them.
But yeah, that's the part. I don't contest that they're chick flicks. I contest the fact that you enjoy them. They're horrible stories.
You didn't see the newest Jane Eyre, did you?
I did see the newest Jane Eyre.
Did you like it?
No.
Okay.
I hate Jane Austen. I hate her.
So now we established
the Stephanie Meyer of her day.
Okay, well,
I went there.
Here's I'm going to argue with you for a completely different reason because you put Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind on your list.
I knew you'd be angry.
Which is not a chick flick. It's is almost as far from a chick flick as you could possibly imagine. I have
Really?
I have never heard a single girl mention that as one of her favorite movies. A,
Well, you're
B,
dating the wrong girls.
B,
You're married.
I still remember being like completely infatuated with Charlie Kaufman after being John Malkovich, and no girls like Kaufman. None of the girly girls, especially that I knew, were interested in anything, any sort of type of art.
You don't feel a movie that is completely about relationships and heartbreak and forgetting them, and who.
It doesn't matter what it's about. It's a matter of what it ends up being.
I think it can be both. See, I think it can be both. Oh, because it doesn't end happy like Titanic does?
No. What I'm saying, what I'm arguing here, I'm agreeing with you that it can be anything to be a chick flick. I'm saying it doesn't end up being a chick flick in any context. Anyway, in my opinion, I think that movie is as far from a chick flick.
You don't
as
think the relationship between the Kirsten Dunst and I think that movie is an examination on relationships, and I still contest that a lot of guys will have a hard time admitting to enjoying movies like that when they're too close.
A movie about relationships doesn't make it a chick flick, though.
Not necessarily, but I think
that's the argument that I'm making.
I think the ones that examine them so honestly do.
You could argue that either way. Honestly.
I think, again, we go to the jock on the ball. We should have just invited someone that we saw playing sports outside. Like, what do you think about this movie? But, okay.
Get through a couple of mine, I guess.
Yeah, we got to get through some of yours here. Love Story, I agree completely with. It's very good. You're
still a great ending. Everyone cries at the end of Love Story, I guess.
Yeah.
At least they did back in the day.
Your typo that I love is Ben thinks that my life sith out me. That's about a tragic Sith love story, which was actually going to be the original title of episode 2, My Life Sith Out Me.
Obviously, I'm referring to the...
My Life Without Me.
Have you seen that movie?
I have not.
My Life Without Me is definitely a very big chick flick, very indie. It's Sarah Polley, and...
I know which one you're talking about.
It is a extremely sad movie. But it's definitely a movie that's aimed towards women, that has this, or feels like it's aimed towards women. But when you're watching it, I personally just got really caught up in it and kind of emotional about it, actually. I mean, it's a interesting movie. Anyways, if you're interested in something that's, you may, even as a guy, kind of cry a little bit about, I will admit I cried in the movie.
All right, well, we have one that Ben and I agree on, Notting Hill, which I'm very surprised you put on your list as one that you enjoy so much. I get in arguments with friends that hate Notting Hill.
I love Notting Hill.
Okay,
great movie.
I think it's a great flick.
Here's what you put on here. You put on Ever After, which is a movie that I don't love, that I like enough for not to argue. Obviously, Forces of Nature is a pretty bad movie.
Forces of Nature.
We've argued about
that, and I hate Sandra Bullock with a passion. But I argue there are merits in that movie that I like.
You put something that I'm really sad though that I missed, which was Ghost.
Oh yes.
Now here's the thing: I've watched Ghost recently, and it doesn't hold up for me as well as it did. But I remember I saw Ghost in the theater with my parents, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great movie back in the day. This is, of course, 8-year-old Ben.
Exactly, 8. I love that Ben. It's funny. I totally knew you'd put some of these on here, but I didn't. You're missing some that I totally thought you would have. But Ben put both Reality Bites and Singles on his list, which, based on the arguments we just had about things, I think do not qualify. I think those were products of the 90s that are not chick flicks. Those are things that guys readily were interested in.
I guarantee you, if you took a sample source of 500 women and you had them rank movies, you gave them a list of movies that they had seen, and they had seen both Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Reality Bites, I would say 95% of them would rank Reality Bites higher than Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'll give you Reality Bites.
I will not give you Singles.
I kind of... Okay.
Yeah.
I'll agree. I'll agree with your disagreement with me on there.
Listen, I was old enough in the '90s to my brother.
Here's the thing. I really like Singles, and I know some girls that like Singles too. But I completely understand your problems with Singles, and that's fine.
Ben has some amazing typos on this list that make such different movies.
I was just typing them out really quick,
like Sleeping Beatty. Which is actually
Warren Beatty.
It's Ned Beatty, and it's just Ned Beatty, and its sequel, Sleeping Beatties, which has both of them. In it.
What's Julie and Julia?
The Julia Childs movie.
Oh, I never even saw that.
I hate the half of it, but I think that's...
Well, we talked about Jerry Maguire last week and whether... and we almost even got into whether sort of, I think, whether it was a chick flick or not. So that's been well discussed.
All right, so I want to actually take 1 minute here, a full minute, to focus on Say Anything, which used to be my quintessential best romantic comedy, like best rom-com, whatever you want to call it. Best
it's not
chick
even
flick.
a comedy, really.
Yeah, I mean, chick flick that really exists. And it is still on my top 3, I think, chick flicks. Ben and I both have it on there.
Yeah, it's on. I'm gonna uncover the entire list now.
Yeah. Well, and John Cusack is definitely one of those guys that can show up. John Cusack is one of maybe a handful of men with the drawing power to bring men to a chick flick. Like, John Cusack can sell... There are guys that love the movie Serendipity. There are manly men that will go and watch the movie Serendipity because it's John Cusack. I argue that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, the reason why there's a very good reason why Say Anything is on both lists is because it's a fucking amazing movie.
Yes.
And it's inarguable that it's a great movie, I think. I mean, anybody who's going to argue against Say Anything and say it's a bad movie, I really can't trust their opinion in movies.
They're assholes.
And it's also, in case you're just interested, if you like commentary tracks, the commentary track done on Say Anything by Cameron Crowe, John Cusack, and Ione Skye is the best commentary track in terms of the context of the film being shown than any other one I've ever heard of.
Agree, 100%.
It's incredible.
It puts every other commentary track to shame.
It's pretty incredible. So I would say definitely if you're interested in that sort of thing, check it out.
I will say that the commentary track for Say Anything is a chick flick in its own right. This should be viewed as its own separate movie.
No kidding. You also listed... well, I knew you were in the list. First off, I'm going to do the two around it. Yeah. Juno and Mean Girls. Mean Girls is a chick flick that I love. However, I almost think it's more of a high school movie. I mean, I wish I could classify it, do the sub-classification of a high school movie, like Heathers.
Who are the main male characters in that movie?
There's a gay guy.
That's it. It's definitely chick flick.
Yeah, so it's definitely a chick. No,
versus Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a high school movie.
Right, exactly. I was never going to argue against Mean Girls being a chick flick.
Yeah.
Same as with Juno. Juno is definitely a chick flick, even though it's also sort of that high school movie. I didn't put Love Actually on my list, which it's on Matt's list. I don't really enjoy Love Actually that much, which apparently I have no soul. I have no soul. I knew I was about to say that. God damn you! Why do you keep on?
Because you have no fucking soul. That is a brilliant movie. Love Actually is a listen, if you were a man out there listening to this right now, and you want to rent a movie for you and either your wife, your girlfriend, your mistress, some girl that you're trying to sleep with, whatever it is, go and rent Love Actually because you will be just as entertained as she is, and you will get amazing bonus points.
Well, let me get to sort of where we were on my list really quickly. You were Much Ado About Nothing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's kind of it's a chick's play. I mean, it's basically Shakespeare doing his version of what a chick flick would have been in the 17th century, or excuse me, 18th century. But I don't know. Well, whatever. Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Definitely a chick flick. And I enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it enough to put it on the list, and I didn't think of it.
I'm amazed that I have 2 hipster movies on my list, and I hate hipsters. But I actually like that and Juno. They are very hipsterific movies.
I think they're playing it hipster.
Yeah.
In that movie. They're not really hipster, because if they were really hipster, then you wouldn't want to watch the movies.
This is true.
I don't mean that... Anybody who would classify themselves as a hipster, I don't want to hang out with. I hang out with people whom other people might classify as hipsters, but they're good people. Anyways, so then I get to Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is very recent and is a movie that I enjoyed. I don't think The Perks of Being a Wallflower is a chick flick. I don't think it is because the central... we're talking about a male perspective. It is, in some terms, a love story. However, I feel like it's more of a
coming of age
and a singular story of a guy trying to overcome his own neuroses more than anything else.
I agree. I put it on. My definition was very loose on this again because I put it on as it's not a movie that most guys would go out most guys are not going to go, I'd like one for Perks of Being a Wallflower, please. That just, I don't think that happened more than like 3 times in the entire United
That's
States.
That's probably true. and they probably didn't do that for Pretty in Pink or Pretty Woman either, which are also on your list. Very good chick flick.
Pretty in Woman, weirdest, 9th birthday party I ever had.
It's really funny is you write Shakespeare in Love, which is really good movie, and I love it, and it's definitely a chick flick.
Yes.
And I'm pissed off that I missed that one. But then you wrote The Breakup, which is a chick flick for sure. But
interesting. I thought you were going to argue that.
No. The Breakup is a chick flick. That movie was made for chicks. It was made for women, I feel like. And here's the thing. I feel like they were trying to market it like it wasn't made for women. But I think that movie, all in all, is very much, just from a filmic perspective. When I'm talking about the actual the story, the outline of what happens with all the characters, where they end up at the very end of the movie with their last little meeting or whatever, I think that movie was marketed to women more than it was to men. And I think that they were trying to be smart and be like, oh, it's funny and it's rowdy.
I think if they'd gotten together at the end, you'd be completely correct.
No, well, here's the thing. I didn't like the movie. So
interesting.
That's one thing. So let's kill what's almost left of my list.
Yeah,
you have a couple left on yours.
You've got. And I'm amazed you actually put this on here. Sleepless in Seattle surprises me a great deal that you have that on your list.
I love Sleepless in Seattle.
Interesting. Did
you know that? Have you watched Sleepless in Seattle recently?
Yeah. No, this isn't a judgment of you. This is more of a here's the extent of chick flick hierarchy, and that even when talking about chick flicks, there are movies I would be worried to put on my list because Ben would be like, really? Fucking When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle, both of which Ben has on his list, and both of which I purposely left off of my list because I thought they were so broad, and I don't revisit that. I don't think they hold up as well. When Harry Met Sally, maybe. Sleepless in Seattle,
I completely disagree.
Sleepless in Seattle is a creepy fucking movie, dude. When you think about the plot of that movie,
the reason why I love Sleepless in Seattle is because it's a love letter to film. People don't realize that when they watch the movie, but that is Rob Reiner's love letter to classic film.
Yeah,
it's
an affair to remember.
Well, it's not only an affair to remember, but they're talking about multiple films in that story. There's that whole scene where Nora Ephron, or not Nora Ephron. There's the other actress who also is a director. I forgot what her name is. And she's playing the role.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a lot of stuff to love in that movie. And When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle, I think, are two movies that actually hold up better than almost any other romantic comedies of the.
I would
this past
over Sleepless in Seattle. I would pick Joe versus the Volcano.
I like that movie too.
And you know what? I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, pretty much.
I don't know if it defines itself as a movie, much less a chick
flick. How about
flick.
Forget Paris? How about any? How about any?
Fuck! I forgot French Kiss.
Oh, and you forgot French Kiss. How about anything with Billy Crystal or Tom Hanks in it?
Oh yeah.
Well, let's just include all of those, and we can.
Monster Inc.
You added Wedding Singer, which is. The funny thing is, I think that Wedding Singer is an accidental chick flick. They definitely were going for that whole market, and it's a movie that women ended up loving. And
I think it was the first of the Sandler movies that was purely about a relationship.
The last 10 minutes are pure chick flick.
The whole theme of the movie is chick flick.
I guess you're right. You're right.
Waterboy, not a chick flick. 50 First Dates, chick flick. Wedding Singer.
The Devil Wears Prada is definitely a chick flick. I don't love it.
That's okay. I'm all right with you.
Working Girl, again, definitely a chick flick. I don't love it. Anything left on my list?
Yeah, you have Zeffirelli. I like that you make sure that it's not Baz Luhrmann's. I respect you for
it's not any other Romeo and Juliet.
Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, which is a very intense and well done adaptation of the worst play that Shakespeare ever wrote.
I'd argue that it wasn't the worst play that he wrote. I would say it'd probably be in the bottom 3. So we agree on that fact, but I really actually, that's the thing, I don't even like the play, I like that movie for some reason. And sometimes in just a visual context, what Zeffirelli was doing. Although, you think about one of the creepiest things in Hollywood history, the fact that Zeffirelli is lusting, and telling you to kiss her harder, and stuff like that, and doing all of this stuff with this 13-year-old girl who's innocent and whatnot, and then a year later they're married. Zeffirelli and Olivia What's-Her-Face, who played Juliet. It's pretty creepy. It's kind of weird, to think about that.
I can't wait to be a director. I mean, gross.
Okay, so anyways, we're going to seg that. Anyway, so we've talked about some chick flicks here.
So we have lost all of our man cards for the better part of 53 minutes now on here.
Let's do just a quick... do you have a question this week?
I had not prepped one. I had one, and you know how I keep saying, like, I've been pulling punches on the question?
Yeah.
I had one that I, like, because you know me. I tend to always come in under, but then when I, like, apply myself, I go way over the line. Right. I think the question I had was way over the line. So I'll ask you instead.
You want me to ask? Because I'll ask you first.
Okay.
And it's one of those kind of embarrassing, but it's kind of fun sort of questions. At any point in your life, did a parental figure... What was the most embarrassing thing that a parental figure caught you doing?
Actually, this is good. It's hugely embarrassing, but it's not embarrassing in the way that I'm uncomfortable talking about. When I was living up in Abacoa and Jupiter with my dad, I used to go to this bar, Rooney's, which was I could walk to it from the townhouse we were in. So it's one night I got completely hammered at Rooney's. I stumbled my way home. I was starving. Like, I just absolutely had to have food. So I went into the kitchen and I put a pan on and some oil on to make eggs. Decided I was going to make scrambled eggs. Then, because the eggs, would take time to go through, I decided I also should be doing laundry because I had to do something the next day that I need laundry for. So I went upstairs, stripped off everything I had, grabbed a pile of clothes, butt-ass naked, at which point the smoke alarm goes off in our townhouse. So I, freak out. I go running downstairs with this pile of clothes. I've got no clothes on. The pan's burning. There's smoke all over the kitchen. I grab the pan, which has got eggs, now burnt eggs in it, and I turn around and I'm looking directly at my dad, who of course woke up because the smoke alarm's going off, and I'm standing there naked with a burnt pan of eggs, and he was just like, I don't want to know what's going on. I just don't want to ever see this again. And I was like, okay. And that was the end of our conversation. We have never spoken about it since that time. I don't even know if he remembers it, but it sticks with me. My question as well, a little different side of it. What is the meanest thing you have done, either accidentally or intentionally, to a nice person?
That's a really tough question because I'm such a nice person. I can't think of anything mean.
You're not Tom Hanks here. You're not the nicest man alive. You have to have done something you felt guilty about.
Okay, here's one thing and I was 11 years old and I was in Germany, and I was part of this international peace organization, which I'm still involved with in some capacities.
Love that that's the start of the meanest thing you've ever done, working for a peace organization.
I wasn't working for it. I was 11 years old as a participant in this peace thing in Darmstadt, Germany in 1994. Anyways, there was a junior counselor, a 16-year-old kid, who was basically helping the camp run, and was just the nicest guy. His name was Ben, funny enough. Yeah. And he was just so nice and just such a good guy, and I forgot why I did this, but when I was there, I was rifling through one of my friends from another country's tape collection, because this was I didn't have a portable CD player. I only had a portable tape player. So even though I brought CDs and we were listening to CDs in 1994, I didn't have it to listen to. So if I wanted to listen to anything on my own, I had to have it on tape. Well, he was going through his tape collection with me. I think the guy was from Germany. I think it was this guy named Hans. Of course. And so anyways, I'm looking through his tapes and I see the best of Scorpions. And I had never listened to the Scorpions before. But I pop it in and I'm like, this shit's awesome. I'm 11-year-old me. I'm rocking out to the Scorpions. I'm whatever. And so one morning I just happened to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and I don't know why I did this. But I snuck into where all of the junior counselors were sleeping, the guys. And I put my headphones over this guy in Ben's ears and turned it up to full blast. And I went into some awful Scorpion song, just hit play and ran out of the room.
You George McFly'd him.
I basically did. I mean, it's funny. I'm sure I've done meaner things to people, whether it was accidentally, but that really stuck out to me because the funny thing is I'm like sprinting out of the room, and I think it's so funny, but then I like stopped and I like walked back in with like my head down, and I was like, I'm sorry.
You can't even do a mean thing right. You just instantly...
Meanwhile, he's like laughing at me, and he's like, I'm going to get you some point, and I was like, I know, and I was like, I felt so bad about it. I don't know. He was just this really nice guy, and I completely did that. It was pretty funny.
All right. Well, anyway, we're going to wrap up today. Again, you guys can find us wherever you want. Please stick with the podcast. We're trying to take notes on everything that everyone's saying, and kind of like continue to give you guys things you want. If you like or dislike something about the podcast, leave us a comment on our site. Send us an email. We're small enough that we will take your requests. Like, we're not too big.
Totally.
Then, like, if you have a theme that you want us to talk about or whatever. Anyway, you can visit us at www.lastpintprod.com, and you can find everything else from there.
Yeah. And of course on Twitter, at lastpintprod, Facebook /lastpint. Find us everywhere. Give us comments. Throw a bunch of insults in our general direction.
Or money.
Yes.
Or if you're looking to produce a screenplay written by men that love chick flicks and the breakup, then take a look at some of our script samples. Anyway, this has been The New Way with Ben and Matt. I am Matt.
I'm Ben.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Have a good week. Cheers.
Cheers.